All right, so this is the July, no, June. We're in June still, not July yet. June coffee with co-op. I can't get my words out. Coffee with Katie. That's where we are today. And I have Alex, who has graciously agreed to join us today. He's from Main Street Market in Evansville, Minnesota. I kept saying Evanston, but it's Evansville, Minnesota. And it's a really unique model that I read about in the I think it's the Rural Grocery Initiative newsletter. And if you don't get that newsletter, I really recommend that you subscribe to it. I'll include the link to subscribe to it in the email I send out afterwards. It's a great newsletter. I always find something really insightful and useful in it, which is a good point of a newsletter. You want people to say that about your newsletter. But we have Alex here today to talk about their grocery store in a very small rural community in Minnesota. It's a membership-based store that allows for staffed and unstaffed shopping. So I'm gonna stop talking and let the star of the show talk a little bit. Alex, will you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background before we get into the questions?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me today. So my background is I actually used to be a diesel technician, and I don't have grocery background. I back in high school, I guess I worked in a restaurant, I guess, but really no grocery experience. But my background is in diesel mechanics, and when I was in the trade, I was actually in field service. So I had a service truck and I drive out to customer sites and repair equipment or generators or whatever. And that's probably what kind of grew the side of me of problem solving, because I was out by myself. I just kind of had to figure it out, and most of the times had to get it running, as soon as possible. So it was my problem solving side was pretty strong, and that's probably what rolled into the grocery side. I guess we had in our small town of Evansville, we had the issue of no groceries. So I guess I was just wild enough to take on that challenge, I guess, of using my problem solving skills.
Well, thank goodness you did. Thank goodness you did. Tell us a little bit about the market and why it's different from conventional grocery stores that we might be familiar with.
Sure. So Evansville is a town of about 600 people. We're about a half an hour from kind of the big box stores. So when you look at Evansville and its size and its community, it's kind of more what you call a bedroom community, where people travel to the large town, they work, they come home at 6 o'clock, and that's where they live, that's where they sleep. So when we saw the previous store close, and it was about 4 years, we looked at the community and we knew that a large percentage of the community didn't get back into town until the evening time. So we wanted to find a way that we could, provide a store to them as well, but really understanding the challenges with staffing and the cost of labor. We knew it wasn't feasible to staff it, say 9 o'clock at night or anything like that. So, and Evansville kind of as an overall community, when we was looking at it, I actually went to elementary school in Evansville, so I had a little bit more background in it, but we knew that there wasn't going to be the volume that was going to be required to do a traditional store. As the previous one closed, we kind of see that trend of more people traveling to town, to Walmart or Cub Foods, kind of the big box stores. So we understood that a traditional model wasn't going to work. We briefly looked at kind of like a co-op model, but we weren't very familiar with it, so we didn't give it too much attention. So kind of understanding we needed we needed traditional time for those that want the traditional experience, but we needed to be able to provide to those in the later evenings. So that's kind of where we came up with the balance of we would be open 3 days a week, just as a regular grocery store, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And that's for anybody and everybody. It's just a normal store on those 3 days. And then outside of that, we kind of came up with the idea of doing memberships similar to like a gym membership. We all know the gyms nowadays where, you sign up for your membership, you can go work out at midnight or, 3 a.m. So we thought, well, if it works in the gym setting, let's see, is it something that work in the grocery setting too? So we kind of pitched it to a few people and they were pretty intrigued, kind of the idea. And once we had a few people kind of on board, we decided, well, I guess we better really start working on this and see if we can figure this one out. So, and that is how we ended up opening, and that's still how we operate today. We opened in May of 2021, so we just passed 2 years. And we're still open just the 3 days a week. And at this point, I think we're up to 125 members. So.
And when you're open, Alex, do you have staff outside of your family, or is it simply family run on those days when you're staffed?
For Evansville, it's strictly family.
Gotcha. Okay. Some of us might be familiar with Amazon kind of cashierless stores. There's options like that on the East Coast and the West Coast, I believe. Not so much in the Midwest that I'm aware of. But how is this model different from those models, or how is it similar?
So Amazon Go, I've never personally been in one. I have done a lot of research on them. Because about the time we were researching, that's kind of when they started to open as well. So the big difference would be Amazon Go is what you'd classify as a cashierless store. It still has workers, it still has people there stocking shelves and everything like that. It's just there's no physical cashiers, or I think they do actually at the time now, I think they do offer one or two. We're, I guess, what you would classify as an unmanned store. So when members come in to shop, there is nobody there. They are there by themselves. There's nobody in stocking shelves. So that's kind of probably the more main difference. Probably the more a realistic difference, I guess, would be is when I researched into the Amazon Go's a couple of years ago, their first store I read was like 1,800 square feet, which Evansville or Main Street Market is about 900, so about half the size. For that 1,800 square feet, I think I read they had like $1.5 million just into the technology side of it. That was not to build out the store. That was strictly the infrastructure for that. I couldn't imagine $1.5 million for
Right.
1,800 square feet. It's just,
How do you ever overcome that?
that was kind of the question for many years. It's like, why are they doing this? It does not make logical sense. But now we see. So now they've taken that technology and they're packaging it up and they're marketing it to independent people. I think I heard a rough figure of 1,000 square feet was going to cost like $150,000. So still kind of out of the realm for rural, unless it had a pretty big support, but they're still kind of going after that kind of suburbs or inner city. But that's probably, to me, the Amazon Go and all the facial recognition and the tracking, and to me, it's a little bit creepy if you personally, but we kind of take that approach, but we do things very simple. There's no facial recognition. We do have cameras as kind of a backup if we need to find an issue that maybe came up. But it's kind of a night and day as far as financial wise.
Yeah, can you tell us a little more about that part of the business, like the compare the Amazon model to your model in terms of price, functionality?
So from what I know, the Amazon Go is, as long as you have an Amazon account, you download an application that links with it. And then once you enter the store, they've got a scanner that you would scan your app I think it pulls up a QR code or something like that. And it scans that, and then that's how it understands who is in there. So at the point you scan your phone, it's now connected your facial recognition with your account. And as you go around it, it watches you and it sees as you take things off the shelves and put them back. It's quite the technology. It really is. For us, we kind of take the most basic approach. We've got a door entry system that does log everybody as they come in. Each person has their individual unique identification. So when John Anderson comes in the door, I know it's him. And it's real basic. When people get in, that's kind of how we know they're in there. We don't have, none of that fancy technology to go with it. But once people are in the store, they could just do their shopping, just like if there was somebody there running a cashier, except we got a self-checkout in there.
Okay, so they do use a self-checkout, not an app.
When we initially opened, we were under a different point of sale that offered the app. When we were looking to open, I had seen a couple instances of like the scan and go function. I thought that was pretty neat. So I did find a company that provided that that we initially opened with. We have now since left that company because it just they weren't growing the way that we needed. They were a startup company at the time. Then later they got bought out by a public company and their vision changed and it just didn't go along with what we needed anymore. So it was very handy to have the phone app. The people that used it loved it. It worked really good. It's just that there's very few people that do it in the way that we need to be able to run a phone app. So
Gotcha. And did you notice any hesitation with any kind of demographic in using the app? Like in my mind, I'm thinking my parents or my grandparents probably wouldn't be eager to use an app to check out at the grocery store.
when we designed this whole system, we kind of designed it for kind of the two types of people, the technology people and the non-technology people. Because we knew in the case of Evansville that there is a clear difference. So like with our door access. So our door access, if you don't really like technology, we have a key fob that will give you, and you go up to the door and you scan the key fob and it'll let you in the door. Works really good for those people that don't really care for their phones. For the people that are more tech savvy, that like to use their phone for everything, we actually have an app for them to open the door with. That one is really slick in the sense of after we get it all set up, as long as their Bluetooth and location is turned on, and as long as it's in their pocket or on them, as they get close to the door, they just touch the reader with their hand and it'll unlock. So that one is really neat. Most people are like, well, here they start to pull out their phone. It's like, nope, you don't need to pull out your phone as long as it's on you and close enough. It's pretty user friendly that way. We're dealing with a little bit of issues getting people set up. It's kind of a clumsy way to get people set up that we're trying to fix. But otherwise that system's been really good. So that kind of gets you in the door for the two types of people. And then the idea was the people that still continued to like their phone, to use everything, then we could use the phone app. And for the people and non, that's why we provided a self-checkout. We
Gotcha.
did see some people in the larger or higher demographic that they took to it, and they were a little nervous at first, but once they kind of get past that nervousness and try it once or twice, it's kind of second nature.
Yeah, it's getting over that fear. Definitely. So I think I'm thinking of myself at the self-checkout at the grocery store, which I don't like to use, but sometimes I do use. And inevitably something doesn't scan right, or there's a hiccup. What happens then on the unstaffed days? at the self-checkout?
So in a case like that, there is kind of a search spot on there where somebody could type in, for some reason, if something didn't scan, that they can then type in and find it that way. That happens sometimes. Other times it seems like they just find a piece of paper somewhere on the counter and then they write us a little note and they stick it behind the counter.
Oh, that's the
You know,
best. I love it.
They'll, when we had our old point of sale, we were having some issues, and once in a while we'd pull up the report and it's like, people have come in, but nobody's checked
No
out
one's
what's going on here.
shopping.
And then we kind of check the cameras and it's like, okay, something's going on here. Then we get there and there's a notebook there and it's got people have
I
started writing
bought
everything down.
blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. Uh-huh.
Here's my phone number. I bought all this stuff and whatever.
Oh my
People just kind of
gosh.
resort to going that route, which is,
Yeah,
we can do that. We're in a small town, so.
sure. That's really cute. And I love it. That's sweet. Um, what about stocking and pricing? How does that work?
So we get our stock orders on Wednesdays. When we initially opened Main Street Market, everybody kind of has that stigma of going into small town grocery stores. We just know it's going to be expensive. I mean, we've just become accustomed to it. So our main goal was we wanted to come in under that threshold. So we could still kind of hit the price we need, but we didn't kind of trigger that, wow, this is really expensive. So
Mhm,
there's a
mhm.
few items throughout the store that we have priced like really competitive. There's a few people have actually said, well, you're cheaper than Walmart on that. It's like,
Wow.
yes, good, but then it kind of gives them the sense of, then they look around, they go, oh, well, maybe it's not as expensive as I thought it was going to be. So that was kind of our goal. But at the beginning of COVID, and with all the price fluctuations,
Mhm.
with not being able to get stuff, that was a big issue. But luckily, when we first opened, we had such a big influx of members at the first week that it kind of helped us to, when prices started skyrocketing, we could kind of just hold the price and kind of wait to see if it comes down, or start adjusting slowly. Kind of in the case of eggs were just terrible. I don't know if they were everywhere else, but for
Mhm.
us, there was at one time they wanted our suggested retail for a dozen eggs, I think was $11
Oh, wow.
for just a standard dozen eggs. And in a case like that, it's like we knew, if we were gonna meet our what we're shooting for our margins, that we're not gonna sell them at that price. So we kind of slowly brought our price up and we capped it at like, I think $5.99. We just said, we're not going any higher. If we lose money on the deal, that's fine. We'll make it up elsewhere, but we're not going to be the store that has $10 eggs. And it worked for us. We had people that come from Alexandria, kind of the bigger town, the big box stores. They'd come in our front door and they're like, do you have eggs? And it's like, well, yeah, we've got, I think 10 dozen back there. And they go, we've been all over the big town, Alexandria. Nobody has eggs. Well, we got them back
We
there.
have
So they
'em.
go on back and they grab them. They go, well, $6. I think I stopped in the next town and they were $9. Well, maybe you should stop at
Mhm.
us more often,
Come back. Yeah.
Yeah, so the membership kind of, that cost or the fees that we got from that, it really kind of helped us to make small adjustments rather than drastic ones.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have a question in the chat. Purple Carrot's asking about purchasing with anyone else. Like, are you part of a buying group or distributor of some sort to help keep your costs low?
We have a distributor for our main, for pretty much everything, probably 90% of the stuff we have. In Minnesota, we are not allowed to go to a discount store to buy our stuff and bring it back. We're not allowed to go to Walmart or Sam's Club or anything like that and resale. Everything that we buy has to come from a distributor, which is really aggravating when our distributor doesn't have things that we need. But I've started to see a little bit of a trend of that happening more often. However, we really haven't seen it in our area. And unfortunately, the towns that are surrounding Evansville is owned by a different owner that's got 3 stores. So we're kind of surrounded by him. And he's kind of, I don't think he's really interested in working with us to do buy-ins. So
Gotcha.
I
Who is
have
your
seen it's been
distributor?
working very, very good for areas, and that's been great to see.
Okay, what kind of distributor do you use and what kind of products? Are you just conventional grocery, organic or natural or a
We're
mix?
pretty much all just traditional.
Okay,
We have recently switched over Hoffman, our second store. We switched that to a different one that gives us a little bit more options. But it's pretty much just the traditional goods.
gotcha. Okay, and I saw another question come up in the chat. Oh yeah, tell us more about the subscription options. Are they monthly? You know, how does that work?
So the membership fee is paid up front at the beginning. We've got our 1-year membership is $75 for the year. We've got a 6-month option for $50 and then a 3-month for $30. And that's paid up front at the beginning. That when we talk about theft, that is kind of, I think, a really good deterrent. So when you sign up, you pay that $75 up front. I think we kind of picked a number that would get us just high enough to get away from the crowd that is intentionally stealing. So the big question is, well, how do you prevent stealing? How do you stop somebody from stealing something? And our simple answer is we don't. Somebody could come in, a member could come in, grab stuff and walk out the door, and it is what it is. But the question that we follow up with is, if you're a person that intentionally steals, why would you pay $75 to come in and do it? Why wouldn't you just go down to the gas station, or why wouldn't you go to Walmart? Why would you pay that?
Pay
upfront?
money to steal. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the point that we find out what's going on, then we disable their access. So if I jokingly, I told one older gentleman that didn't quite understand the whole thing. He goes, well, I'm just going to come in and steal. I said, well, then you better steal like $100 because you spent 75 to come in here. So you might as well make it worth your while.
Worth your while. It's going to be hard to steal $100 worth of groceries. You got to carry a lot of stuff.
Yep.
That's kind of cute. That's funny. There's another question in the chat. Oh, about stocking. Yeah. So on the unstaffed days, let's say a product is, someone buys all the milk or whatever. Do you send staff in to restock, or how does that work in between staffed and unstaffed days?
Sure. Generally, with our being open every other day, that really hasn't been an issue. Once in a great while, if we know like a holiday has coming up and we're just happen to be closed on that day, we'll maybe check in at the end of the night to kind of see what the sales were for the day. And then we can kind of see, well, okay, yeah, we did way better than we thought. Maybe we ought to go on in and maybe tidy up or clean up, sort of thing. But generally it hasn't been an issue, mainly being open every other day.
Gotcha. And what about local producers and local products? Do you partner with any like local farms or honey makers or?
We do have local honey that we carry year round. We have a local coffee roaster that roasts coffee fresh for us. We have I guess semi-local maple syrup, but that's kind of our year-round stuff. As things come in season, usually we get in, all the produce, tomatoes, corn, sweet corn, and potatoes and all that stuff. So when the season is in, we try to do as much as we can with local. And in a lot of cases, we just get random people that come on in. Well, they shop with us, but they'll come on in with a big box of apples or something like that. And they're like, well, here, you can just have them, just, sell them and get what you get. We've got way too much and you can just have them. So we see that a lot. It's just, we try to, well, here, let's do something. And they go, oh, no, we've got way too many zucchini please just take it.
You're doing them
So-
a favor.
Exactly. So it's been great because the community, I mean, they want us to be there. And those that have the ability to either, be able to donate the excess, they're more than willing to. It's really been a great community.
That's cool. So cool. So cool. Back to the point of sale system and the technology side of the business. Can you shed some light on the cost? If you're comfortable sharing the investment that you put into that side of the store, to be able to offer that model.
I will share as much as I can. There are a few things I'm not able to share, but when we initially opened up, the point of sale we used was called Yoke Payments. It was to be able to find a point of sale company that did what we needed was just about impossible at the time. Even over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of changes and there's been some new ones that come out. But back then, it was really difficult. Our whole idea was we wanted one point of sale that we could use as a cashier when we're there, but then when we're gone, we could utilize that same one, just turn it around, and it would be a self-checkout. There was a couple at the time, but we really wanted the phone app. So fortunately at the time, that Yoke Payment, they had all that. I kind of sat down with them and it looked like it was going to work. The issue we had with them, and also which is since why we've left, is they were designed for a micro market environment. So a micro market is essentially replacing vending machine rooms. Usually at like a office building, you used to walk into the break room and there'd be a line of vending machines. Well, they're now taking out vending machines. They're putting in just regular coolers and regular shelves, and then they've got a central checkout spot. So that's kind of the new vending machine room is now micro markets. And that's what Yoke Payments did, is they did micro markets. We, however, of course, same idea, it's just a much larger volume. Even for Main Street Market, that's not a very big space. It was still a stretch for them to be able to do everything we needed to do. Once we finally were able to get our SNAP or our EBT benefit license, they weren't able to even touch it. So we had to run all that through on a separate system, and it was inefficient. So about the time we gained Hoffman, our Hoffman store, we understood that we needed to make changes. We needed to make things more efficient, and we needed to get more data out of things. With Yoke Payments, we just couldn't get the data. There was no way to decipher the self-checkout sales versus normal sales. They were just, it was just sales. And for us, we want to know how much our members are doing compared to normal. So at the beginning of the year, we started testing out a new system that has seemed pretty promising. There's a few nuances that we're working on some people with, but it's looking really good. What I can tell you, when we went to look at replacing the old system in Hoffman, we went to NCR, or the big point of sale company that you'd see in the Walmart, Targets, those and stuff like that. We reached out to them and they gave us a quote for $45,000 for a regular checkout, and then a separate self-checkout, and then all the stuff to go with it. And that was at $45,000. It's like, that's not going to work, So this one that we're testing out, it will probably be right around the $5,000. So considerably cheaper, or more affordable. The only downsides is, and I talked to somebody else about it that was going through the same situation. the NCRs or that level of point of sale are great point of sales. There's no doubt about it. They will do everything you need them to do. You'll not have problems or little problems, but it comes with a price. So I like to say, yes, we have found hopefully a reliable alternative for much more affordable. There just might be a little bit more effort involved. And at that point, I kind of said, well, saving $40,000, is that worth it? And well, more than likely, yes.
Mhm.
The other side of it is we were quoted, I think it was $300 a month for software fees. Software fees, I think it was support fees, whatever.
Mhm.
This other one, it should be under $100 a month.
Wow.
So much more affordable, much easier to be able to implement quicker sort of thing. So there's still kind of a few things that we're working on before we're ready for that one, but it does look very promising.
Awesome. And tell us a little more about the Hoffman store. Is that the second store, and are there additional stores beyond that, or?
Nope, right now, we took over Hoffman. It's called the Hoffman Market. And that one we took over August of last year. At the beginning of the year, we had received a phone call saying the previous owners were wanting out. They run a small cafe with it, and they were just wore out from dealing with COVID and everything. So they were looking to close. And our whole mission is to keep grocery stores open. So by August, we eventually ended up with it. So that one is considerably larger. Main Street Market is about 900 square feet. The Hoffman Market is about 2,700. So
Wow.
considerably bigger. And that's kind of what made us realize that we needed to change things and make things more efficient. Because when we did membership signups at Main Street Market, it was, you had to come in, we had some paper, we had 3 pages, you fill out all your information, and we would manually set them all up, and it worked. But in the case of the Hoffman Market, where we have some part-time staff, we knew that wasn't going to work. So we needed something more streamlined and something more kind of more easier to get people signed up. At this point, the Hoffman Market still operates as a traditional store. We're open 7 days a week, but we are still waiting on the state of Minnesota to approve us to be able to do this model. Because in Minnesota, you just can't simply start doing this. There's actually some special policies and procedures that we need to follow to be able to operate like this. So
And
we
that
have
has
been
to
waiting.
do, Alex, if I'm not mistaken, that has to do with selling food products while unstaffed, some kind of legislation in Minnesota, right?
Yep, there's a statute that states that a person in charge must be present during all business hours. And I tried to do the loophole and say, well, technically I'm not open. I'm only open 3 days a week. So they're not my business hours.
That didn't fly.
They didn't see it that way. So
that was a good idea though.
I really tried it. And when we opened Main Street Market, it was, we didn't know that we had to, inform them that we were going to do this. So that was a little bit of a, we're halfway through construction and they call us and go, hey, we heard you're going to do members and you're going to do after hour shopping. We said, yes, we are.
Yeah.
And they go, yeah, well, you can't do that. We won't issue you a license.
So the license you were issued for the Main Street Market doesn't allow you to expand to others. You have to go through that process every time. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Gotcha. Well, at least you've gone through it once now, and now hopefully I have a better.
We were really banking on that. We've done it once, and we're the people at the state, they know who we are, that the second one would be easier or at least faster.
No.
We've been waiting 3 months and they haven't even started our application review. So
Oh, wow.
they're not very quick, we'll say.
Wow. I have one more question on my list of questions for you, and then I've seen some questions in the chat. So then I'll ask my question, then I'll ask you those questions that are in the chat, and then everyone else can chime in too. But I know in the case study that I shared it with everyone here, I think it talks about consulting work that you and your wife do for this type of grocery store. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we did start doing a little bit, I think it was last year. It was just, I think we had an article in NPR or NPR. We had an article that went out, and we had some people that were pretty intrigued by it, and some fairly local ones reached out to us. So we kind of started to do some consulting last year. The issue that we kind of ran up against was what we were trying to do was it took a lot of effort, we'll just say, on like the back end stuff. You know, we had this system for the door, we had this system for point of sale, we had this system to sign people. It worked for us, but we knew it wasn't going to work for others. So we've kind of slowed down on the consulting, and right now we're actually developing our own system that kind of encompasses everything. So it's like for our new membership signups, it's a very easy form you can fill out on your phone, and it'll automatically run the system, and it'll create the door access, and it'll do it all automatically. So that's going to be huge for that. And then it just kind of streamlines everything. We knew that was the big issue when we started to talk to some of these other places. We tell them, you know, yeah, we can help you, we've got all this stuff, and they go, well, how do you run it, or how does it work? It's like, well, to sign people up, you got to go over here, but then you got to enter their information in an Excel file so you can track them, and then you got to keep an eye on it for sending renewals, and you got to mail those, and it was too much friction to make it work, you know, elsewhere. So our system that I'm hoping by winter we should have some kind of do some better testing. I'm working on it right now, but it does everything automatically. It'll send out renewals, it'll disable access at the end of the time frame. It'll allow for online renewals. So that's an issue we see, is we send out renewals in the mail, but for people to renew, they got to come into the store. And the people that are members can't get there.
Right.
So this system, it'll be able to send an email prompting, hey, you're going to expire in 30 days. Here's a sign up link or a renewal link, and you can pay online. So we've kind of dialed back on consulting until we can get that taken care of, because I think there'll be a lot more success in people being able to adopt it if it's a little bit more streamlined.
Yeah. How big is Hoffman? The Hoffman community?
Hoffman is about 700. The
700
difference,
people. Okay.
they're about the same in population, but Evansville, there's not a lot of employment opportunity. It's a lot of family-run businesses, not much for employment opportunity. Hoffman, similar size, but they've got a large business district, so they got a lot of employment opportunity and a lot of ways to keep people in town. So we see a lot better volume over there.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, going to the chat then, let's see here. Do you have a grab and go section or bulk section or any kind of hot to go kind of food?
We do not. We, even with Hoffman being open 7 days, we kind of thought about it. But I just think the sales are going to be so, we won't be able to kind of expect. It'll be kind of well, let's put out 3 roasted turkeys today and just hope we sell them.
See what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we see that there's enough traffic for that, especially like in Hoffman. We've got a convenience store that offers pizza and all that
ready-made stuff. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. The less expensive point of sale system that you talked about, does it generate a reorder list for you? Like, does it know what's been purchased?
This one I have not I haven't looked into that side of it. I know our initial one, that York Yoke Payments, they did offer where you could pull up like a list that you were getting low on numbers. That I really liked about that system, because then we could just set each product at a low inventory number and then it would populate a list. I think this other one will. I just haven't had much time to look into it.
Gotcha. Okay. Another question from the chat is, what exception did the state use to justify your license?
So the way our licensing works is we do have a traditional, they call it a food handler's license. And that's the license every grocery store in Minnesota will have, or at least some variation of that. What we have is, so we have that main license, but then we have a variance approval that allows us to operate, I guess, outside of that statute during our unmanned hours. So it's the exception to the rule of having a person in charge during all business hours.
Gotcha. Okay. And then Ron has a funny comment here, and then I'm going to open it up after I state his comment. Y'all can ask questions. Ron's posted that doesn't the state understand that rural populations still need to eat without driving long distances? This problem will only get worse. And I couldn't agree more, Ron. But I'll stop asking my questions. You guys go ahead and have.
I think they are. We've actually got a meeting tomorrow with a state senator. She's stopping by. I think they're slowly starting to understand that this is a bigger problem. But I think, like everything else in government, things move pretty slow. So by the time I think they get up to speed, we're already going to be 5 years into it. So
Yeah. If only the government kept up with reality, huh?
yeah, that's for sure.
Okay, what other questions do you guys have for Alex while we have him here? I think this is just fantastic model. I think I'm so happy to introduce you to some cooperators, because I think the two are very, they could be very connected, and I think we could do a lot of the same things you're doing. And I'm curious about volume and how that works in a larger community. But I want to hear from the rest of you too. Yeah, that's why when we took over Hoffman, we knew it was kind of a more typical size store for a community at, close to 3,000 square feet. And, us and cooperatives, it's for your members, you're always looking for ways to provide value, to be able to, for a person to, I'm not real familiar with co-op, so I don't, I might be doing things wrong, but you want to be able to provide as much value as you can to your members to get them to sign up or to help out. So you've already got kind of a member list of all your members. It's kind of an easy way to be able to implement. Agreed.
I'm really intrigued by the social science aspect of your linkage between the subscription fee, or the $75 for the annual fee, and the connection you make to people not being not stealing from you. Because I wonder if that's true in the cooperative model too. In ours, for example, people have paid $80, although it's only once in their life. But some cooperatives do use an annual fee. I don't know. Are there studies, Katie, that you are aware of that show cooperative members who have got skin in the game? And I suppose in Alex's model, they renew the skin in the game no less than once a year. So they're reminded that they have bought in, they have paid into this thing. They does that translate to lower losses, lower what do you call it? There's a generic term for that includes theft.
It's called oh gosh, now I can't think of the word. I'll get it.
Inventory shrinkage is one word.
Shrinkage, yeah, yeah. So I don't know of any studies off the top of my head, Buck, but what I can tell you is that the membership buy-in that we see in a co-op does translate to a capital campaign. So people who have already invested their membership dollars see more value in investing further because they already believe in the model. They already have supported it. So we do see that translate, but I don't know about how that, it would be cool to see a co-op's shrinkage compared to a similar size conventional store in a similar city. That's a great question.
Interesting. I wonder if
Yeah,
we should all be getting behind, you know, the legislator who's going to be meeting with Alex. I wonder if co-ops in general shouldn't be getting behind a move to create an opening there for the
Yeah.
unstaffed store. Now, it would of course benefit his model, which apparently you're a sole proprietorship, Alex, or a small corporation, family owned. It would be beneficial in terms of lower staffing costs for all. So it would, you know, increase competition for us all. Wouldn't change anybody's margins particularly better, except for that point Alex makes about less theft in his model. And if it translates to a co-op, then, you know, the big box grocery store might still have high theft in their unstaffed hours that we would not have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, this is Ron from Whitewater, Wisconsin. It's interesting that in a small scale, Alex, you've pulled off something that all of us are trying to do in a bigger scale. You know, Buck is in Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm in Whitewater. Whitewater's got 14,000 people. We've got a small Walmart, and that's it. There isn't anything else. We got to drive 7 miles, 20 miles to the bigger stores, to the box stores. And it's amazing that corporate America doesn't come to Whitewater. You know, we've got 14,000 people. Now, some are college kids, but college kids actually need to eat. You know, now they eat pizza, you know, but it can't be their main diet. Of course, we've just got word that Aldi's is coming. Well, is Aldi's really a grocery store? You know, it certainly has grocery products, but it's not a typical grocery store. So we still think, and matter of fact, our market study shows we're going to do better with Aldi's in town. So yeah, it's like I said, it's only going to get worse as the box stores dominate. The smaller IGAs and Piggly Wigglies, they're going to close. The town next to us is Elkhorn. Same thing. There may be 12,000 people, but their local grocery store, the gentleman that owned that, Frank, couldn't sell it. And finally, IGA has come in and bought it. Well, IGA is pretty small, really, as far as a retail grocery store. But it's another example of rural America just getting stuck, so to speak.
Which is why this is such a unique, I think, innovative approach. This is Alex, what you're doing really is revolutionary and quite impressive, really and truly. It is.
Yeah, I agree.
Jody, Darlene, Sue, you have any questions? Nellie, you won't have anything you want to say?
I would say to the question, is Aldi's a grocery store? The one in my town is. You could eat out of the Aldi's. It has produce, it has meat, it has dairy, it has eggs, all of those things. I don't necessarily shop there. But, you know, we're in a very large town, 450,000 people. But we still have pockets where there is no grocery store. and the big grocers will not come in. But nationwide, we're facing the possible merger of Kroger's and Albertsons.
Mhm.
And what is really fear inspiring to me is I had lived within walking distance of a Kroger's and an Albertsons, whatever they call themselves in your area. And there will be no need for them to have any competition in price. If you go to one and they are higher priced, it will be the same at the other. And there will be no need for customer service. So I don't know, but we have people in these less dense areas that say, well, why don't you build a co-op there? None of the grocery stores will come. Well, they don't come because there would not be enough volume to support the store. I mean, and we have options in a larger city, which of course, rurally you do not.
I don't have any questions, but just wanted to say thank you for sharing. I'm actually here kind of as a representative from Rooted Carrots Co-op in Cedar Falls, Waterloo. We have a population very large, but we're always trying to think outside the box in case our traditional model doesn't work. But I also work as a local food coordinator and working with several communities across the state of Iowa, so very rural communities. So also wanted to hear this information for potential collaborations or ideas for my daytime job, I guess you could say. So thank you again for sharing that information, Alex. It was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here. Like we like to say, in some communities, the traditional model, it works. There's enough volume, there's enough for labor and stuff like that, and there's not a problem. In some communities, the co-op model works just in itself, but there's some communities that they don't fall in between either of them, and it just doesn't work out. So this is just kind of another option
Left over.
to hopefully be able to help out.
Alex, you were on that same call that I was on yesterday, the gal that talked about Kansas, the state of
Yes.
Kansas. Did those two towns, after losing their grocery store, did they look into some of those other options? The school base, I can't remember what they all were yesterday, but.
So I actually, was it last year, they had their rural grocery summit and we presented at that. And we did meet the people that run that Blue Stem Mercantile. I think it was just kind of one of them cases where they needed something in town and that was just something they could think of. Utilizing the school, I think it was the Blue Stem was the school oriented one where the school owns the store and then they kind of use it for teaching students about, the different aspects of business and stuff like that. It's just interesting. There are so many different kind of unique ideas out there where, a school run store or like this, I can't think of it. The one that they have the event center attached to it and they run, they have Friday night dances or something like that. I can't think, it starts with an M, but that town I think has a population of like 40 some people. It's less than 50 people in that town. And they needed something and they had this event space. So that's kind of what makes it all work. They got the grocery and then they have this every week. I think it's like they have a band come in Friday nights. And that's kind of what helps it all. People come from everywhere, I guess, to experience this place. So I wish I remembered what it was called, but very unique, especially for a town of less than 50 people. Yeah, Erica has been, we've talked with Erica. We've met her at the summit last year. She's actually came up and visited our store. The Rural Grocery Initiative is a great organization, and Erica has just always been really good. And they're doing really great things there.
Yes, that's the newsletter I was talking about at the beginning. So I'll include the link to that when I send out the recording of today's session. It's a wonderful organization, great people.
I have a question. I'm Katie's sister, by the way. Hi, guys. Like just that functionality, like when you open the door, do the lights come on?
Yeah.
Or the lights on all the time?
We have like a third of the lights that are on all the time, and then the rest are on motion. So as soon as that door swings open, it catches the motion of the door and the rest of them turn on. All of our cooler lights, they're on all the time, but they're all LEDs, so they're pretty energy efficient. So then after there's been no movement for I think like 10 minutes, and the rest of them turn off again.
That's pretty awesome. I think it's great what you're doing. We just bought a store that was a grocery store back in 1952, and we're working with the Historic Society for the fascia of it to look just like it did in 1952. But we don't know what we're going to do with the interior yet. It's only like 700 square feet, but this is cool. This is a really cool idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Awesome. Well, we are at 11:59 and I'm a stickler for time, so I'm gonna end our call today, but much appreciation to you, Alex. A business owner's time is really valuable, and you giving us an hour of your time is very much appreciated. And in the cooperative spirit, if there's anything we can do to help you, please be sure to let us know. And I hope that you've met some people today that perhaps, might be interested in using your services in the future, because this new package you're talking about to make this doable on the technology side is pretty cool. So.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right, you
Reach out
guys,
to me if you need anything.
sounds great. Have a great day.
Thanks, Katie.
You're welcome, Ron. We'll see you.
You
Hey,
bet.
Eileen. Are you there? Can you hear me, Eileen? Eileen, can you hear me? Oh, there you are.
There, whoo, I was having trouble with my computer for a second there. Hi,
Well, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Well, I have a little bit of bad news for you.
Oh,
The session started at 11 today instead of noon. It usually always starts at noon, but we started early today because of the FCI session at noon today.
oh, yes.
So you just missed it. I'm so sorry, but I have it recorded and I'll send you the recording for sure.
Okay, all right. Thanks. What?
Oh, you're welcome.
That's funny because when I first came on, I heard you saying goodbye and they were thanking you, and I'm like, what?
Wait a second. I saw you pop in. I'm like, uh-oh, she thought it started at noon. I'm sure she did.
I totally did. I didn't even look that close. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. It happens to everybody. It's no big thing. No big thing. You'll get to watch the recording though, and you can watch that whenever you want. So
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you, Katie.
you're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.